everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is episode 3 of Dance Experts, and today I have Alison with me. We actually connected quite recently, but as soon as I saw her work, I felt like we'd known each other for ages because we just are so aligned on a lot of the ways that we see dance and dance in like a bigger context. So I'm really excited for you to get to know Alison and her work today, and we're going to be talking a lot more kind of anthropologically, which I know a lot of you really enjoy hearing about different types of dance from different places. So stay tuned. And Alison, if you would give us an intro into you and your work, that would be a great place to start.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's always so nice to see what arises in conversation in these capacities. So I'm really honored to be here.
My
So
pleasure.
my work is embodied dance, and it's a blend of my personal experiences working in the healing arts and also being a dancer, teacher, performer. And yeah, being able to look at dance from a different capacity and have a different desire for how I want to work with dance and how I want to work with dancers. And it's a little bit outside of what I was given and what, we were given. So there's a certain rebelliousness to it in a way, but there's also, I think, a bit of a homecoming, because I feel that people are really craving this kind of coming back to their expression in a way that it's not made wrong. And I feel like so much of what people are moving through in the dance world is kind of coming back to the essence of why we dance in the first place. So that's
Absolutely.
really like that kind of is what drives me, and that's always what's driven my curiosity. That's driven, like, my background in anthropology, which I did in my undergrad. But yeah, kind of like the why of movement and its inherent power. So that's what we'll
I
probably talk
love,
about.
yes, all of that. I love all of that. The place I'd love to start, because I think it might be a new-ish concept for quite a few people who are like in my community, is healing arts. This term of
Hmm.
healing arts, because it's not something you often hear in the kind of more academic dance world or the more professional dance
Right.
world. So can you just talk to us about what are the healing arts? What do they
Absolutely.
involve?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I basically just started calling myself that because I didn't know how to say 10 things at once.
Yes.
I do, because I've been on this path for 20 years. So it started with, a certain kind of amount of things, but it's become a blend of so many. So it's definitely under the umbrella of healing. What I'll say is it's a funny thing to call yourself a healer. I feel like it's something that I always say it chooses you. You don't choose this. Like it's a bit of an initiation. And um what this kind of work puts you on is a direct mirror to everything that is out of alignment with love, everything that's out of alignment with truth, right? You get to see in yourself, in the world around you. And I feel like healing is really coming into alignment with our soul and why we're here. So it's kind of peeling away the layers of all the things that don't belong to us, all of the things that are holding us back from what I'm going to say is our divine birthright of being in a body. And so I started, with body work, massage therapy, which then went into Reiki, which then went into shamanic work, which then went into deep inner child processing, which then went into priestess work, which then went into, just like one hole after the next, like
Yeah.
deep multidimensional healing. So, I was doing this work of kind of putting my hands on people, and I would get so much information about and for them that I originally I thought I was crazy. I thought there was something wrong with me. I'm like, why, and also the high degree of empathy made it even more curious. I didn't know what that was. I was a young person and I was putting my hands on people. They would have a stomach ache. I would have a stomach ache. Their knee hurt, my knee
Mm.
hurt. I could feel everything that was going on with them.
Oh
And
man.
so anyway, it was all of these things, but it was a blessing in a way, because I really like, it grew so much compassion in me, and it grew so much understanding in a way that I could have never had otherwise, which is partially why I've loved the anthropology side note, because you kind of like go in through experiencing others. Um, but anyway, so the term healing arts I've used as an umbrella to encompass the amount of things that can bring a person into like their deeper truth, into the shedding of old skin, into the releasing of old identities, into allowing ourselves to process and release ancestral wounding and trauma, and it's like to understand our whole selves, right? That's kind of been a lot of the curiosity here, is how do we come into and work with the whole self? And this was something that I had a hard time with in dance class, when I would go in and it was just throwing the physical body around, and I was like, well, God, there's so many other things going on here right now. Why are we all just like this, pretending that the goal is really just to get the leg up to the ear. So
Yeah.
anyway, the healing arts gave me a context and a reference to look at things from a broader perspective when I was in the classrooms. So it's really been a beautiful blend, and there's been a lot of pioneers. I'm not the first, I won't be the last. All the way from like I even think like people like Anna Pavlova like knew what that was.
Yep.
So there's so much to it, but really it's an umbrella for all of the mind, body, the yoga. At one point people used to call me a walking wellness center. I did it all. I did the coaching, I did the healing, I did the massage, I was doing like all of the fitness stuff, the Pilates, the personal training, the group classes, the nutrition.
I
So
love it.
I think it's all about just kind of finding the tools that work for you in those contexts. Not all things are for all people, but
Yeah.
healing arts is just a way that I say, try to keep it in one phrase.
I love it so much, Alison. I resonate so deeply with this thing of like going into the rabbit holes, exploring there, but then coming back out. Like you've made an intentional choice to not stay in any one of these places and become like, just like it's not that you don't have expertise in all of them, you absolutely do, but it's like you chose to also not stay there, to come out and to then draw on these things and bring them together. And that's exactly how I see myself as well. But that comes with many challenges, because then you don't fit neatly into a box that people can put you in. And it's easy for people to question you. Well, you don't have like a 30-year career in one of these things. Instead, you have so much wisdom in many of them, and you bring them together in your own like unique way. How has that been for you? Just on like a personal level.
Yeah, it's not easy. You have to have a really strong soul on a lot of levels. And it's funny, as I was kind of rewriting a post that I had around something about like, have you ever been called the Jack or Jacqueline of all trades? And that's kind of like what I felt I spent my 20s doing, was running around doing all of those things, and also kind of feeling exhausted and unfulfilled. But I knew that they were all important pieces for me to develop and to really hone and know well. So I knew I needed to spend a lot of time doing everything for a long time, so I could kind of see how it fit together.
Yeah.
But we're highly discouraged from that in this world. And I don't think that anything new is born by staying in an old paradigm. I think that when you're wired with a lot of curiosity and questions, you're going to seek those paths. And like you said, it's not the common road. You're not going to find the support from your family and friends 90% of the time, because they're not comfortable with, well, you're out of my comfort zone. You're out of my box. You're out of my ability to understand you. And it takes a lot to stay committed, I believe. And, I remember my father and, like different people, like, why are you going to Austria to study dance? Why are you doing, like what? And I think my answer at the time when I was in my 20s was just like, I would regret not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I lived a lot of my life based on, not even as a younger person, I knew that there were things that were going to be important to me, that if I let them go by, it was going to be a regret. So,
Yeah.
um, no one really teaches you the importance of listening to your heart or how to even do that. And I feel like I had a gift in that way. I'm going to tell you, I had a lot of challenges, a
Yeah.
lot of challenges. But the thing that always sort of came easy to me was listening to the heart and following that.
Yeah.
So that's what I really support others in as well, is kind of coming back to your own truth, your own wisdom, your own path, and
Yeah.
being able to truly follow that. Because as we can see, side note, we're also living in a time in a world where everybody wants to shuffle into one narrative,
Mm-hmm.
one way of thinking, one way only. And if you're not, and you don't, and you can't, you're excluded, you're done. We've seen what's happened, and I won't even go there on this conversation, but it's very much not been about people who can and want to feel into the truth of something for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like I've become a strong advocate for that through the body. And if dance is the medium, so be it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness, so much to places that we could go from there, like this connecting to your heart, like listening to this inner voice as opposed to the outer narrative and whatever. I wonder if this links to the other question that I wanted to ask about the healing, which is, I feel like when it comes to the question of health, people sometimes have this idea that unless I'm sick or unless I'm injured or unless I'm sobbing on my bed, I'm
right.
healthy, which is like everyone can define that however they want to. But I'm here to let people know it gets to be better than they think it can be right now. So, what I'm thinking, because I was thinking about, okay, dancers, dance teachers, people who might be listening to this, and they're like, well, I'm not in like severe pain, so I don't need to heal anything. Like, why would I need to heal? Healing for who? Healing must be for the people who, have a specific diagnosis, whether mental health diagnosis or physical health diagnosis. That's the healing for them. So can we talk about the other aspects to healing that we can all benefit from?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a great question. And the thing that I want to drive home, that I don't think a lot of people think, because I think people associate healing with being really hard and being really tumultuous, and it is. But I don't think that people understand the gift on the other side of what it is to actually face the things that you're uncomfortable with. Because I think, healing is so beyond, like the physical is the last manifestation. So when you're actually healing and moving through old beliefs, old emotions, old stuff, if you want to talk about the subconscious mind, like subconscious mind runs 90 or more percent of our actions. So we're just kind of regurgitating the same thing over and over, never questioning it, like you said, not understanding that it could be any better.
Mm,
So the thing that I want to talk about with healing that I don't think most people understand is that on the other side of that, you get to have everything and no one can take it from you. Because when you
yes.
have walked through every fear that you've had, every doubt, every limiting belief, uncomfortable things, whatever that is, and you are able to see it, own it, integrate it, it empowers you in a way that, again, it's something that no one can take from you. And I feel like it's becoming more and more and more. So once I started to understand that healing was actually something that is going to set you free and give you not heaviness, but lightness.
Yeah.
And it's not, people, I don't think, they think that it's too hard. I can't go there. Life's already too complicated. Yeah, it's actually going to make your life less complicated.
Yeah.
It's actually going to
Simpler.
make things flow. It's
Mm,
actually going to make all those difficult relationships you have better. Because when you change your relationship with yourself, again, it's like a saying, right? Every relationship you have changes. So it is really just becoming more light in a sense. And if people kind of framed it in that context, who doesn't want that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Because it's
so
like, you do
beautiful.
get to have, go ahead.
I love this. And it's something that we might kind of separate sometimes, the healing work, or this idea of, yeah, coming into lightness or more flow with like our personal life, which it absolutely has, you know, huge impact there. But also as a dancer or as a dance teacher, the way that you can show up for your body and for your work and for your audience or for your students or for your clients is, that's the part that I'm so excited to unlock with people, like as a coach myself, because it's we've put it in a box, haven't we? Dance is like in this box, I think, for a lot of people, where it's like, this is, go there, do that, these are the steps, teach them that with a smile, and that's all good. And it's great, you know, people can learn to dance that way, in the sense of like, we have the body doing this thing, and then my body can do that same thing. But when you're coming from a place of, just to take like one personal example for me, when I had really worked through a lot of my perfectionism, I noticed that I wasn't, because I don't think I ever said in any moment any specific words that would have made my students feel like they should too also become perfectionists. Like, I didn't encourage that through language, but I know just from the way that I was in the dance studio as like a young dance teacher, that was emanating off me, whether or not I wanted it to be or not. So like, how I am, or is in some ways how I always am, until I choose to change that pattern. And you can't, like, I think sometimes we think we can hide these aspects of ourselves, or we can like brush it under the carpet and just come, and whatever I say is what they're picking up. But anyone, I think, who's a parent has already told me, like, that's not how it works with kids. They're going to do what you do, not what you tell them to do. And I don't think it's any different with adults, to be honest.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah, I feel like dance is like, you can't hide anything in it. It's so transparent.
Yes.
Which is what also makes it so powerful. But
Yeah.
what I saw, happening, and what I'm even hearing you say in a way is like, what I believe that you and I are changing in a lot of regards is, and this is where the healing part comes into play, right? So what you and I are changing is what we were handed. Like, we were handed this one way of working with the body, and it was very belittling. It was sort of abusive, and it didn't allow for a lot of our humanness in, most of my experience. So it's easy. I mean, and because there's so little real thought about, I mean, I want to say there's so little, that's not what I want to say. I think as it gets passed from one thing, because we honor our teacher and we respect our teacher, like, we just automatically teach like them because it's in our bodies and in our bones. So people don't often take the time in the transition before they become teachers to actually digest, process, and perhaps think on, if I could do this differently, what it would look like. Because you're going to ultimately, like you said, just having, like, when you have kids, you think, I'll be different than my parents were to me.
Yeah.
Once you're taking a conscious effort,
Yeah.
it's like it all gets passed down and carried on. So the healing piece is to look at what we were handed, and to look at a lot of the dysfunction in it, and a lot of the trauma in it, and a lot of the disconnection in it, and to say, I'm not going to pass this on. Like, I'm going to take the great things from this, and I'm going to do better.
Yeah. Oh
Because
man,
I can
it's
see.
so important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is there something, Alison, for you on your personal journey that was in your training, that you were just handed by the previous generations of teachers, that you intentionally chose to heal and change in the way that you do things
Absolutely.
now? Can you share a couple
Absolutely.
of, like, your favorite,
Yeah,
or
I
maybe
mean,
a couple?
I would say that it's been like a personal vendetta, because with so much of what I experienced, and I didn't have the regular dance journey. I didn't start when I was 3 or 4. I mean, I was dancing always. I was in the backyard dancing, and my family, I think, had a different view about my life and, what I was doing and things of that nature. So I didn't actually start training until I was in my late teens, which was, at that point, too old, I was told, and by everyone. And, even like my first ballet teacher, like before we even started class, like this is how I knew, the woman comes in, she's yelling. And she comes in, she's yelling at someone. She comes in the room, slams the door, and then she starts yelling at us about how we're never going to be anything. And it was the first day of class, and she didn't even know our names yet. And that was my first like experience. And because I was a teenager, I think that I wasn't as threatened, and I was like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? But if I was 5, that would have like, I don't know how I would have done. And the highly sensitive, this is why I end up working kind of with the highly sensitive folks, because we have a lot of gifts, in terms of like what we're able to do. But the highly sensitive, when you're not aware that that's what you have, you can also pull in a lot of junk. So it was experiences like that I saw repeatedly in different contexts over and over again. And to a point that I thought maybe for a while, I don't think this path is for me, because if I actually like go the full route and I become a teacher, I'm going to be really angry and abusive. And I don't think I want that. So I thought that that's what the dance world produced, was angry, abusive people. And on a certain level, for some people, it does. But I kind of knew early on that you can work with people and teach technique and support them in a higher level without ever being a jerk, without ever making people cry, without ever going to that like extreme limit that I saw so many people go through. So that became something that I took on really fully. Is like, I'm going to be an effing amazing teacher, and I'm never going to be, a jerk. I'm never going to like just push this negativity, this unconscious negativity, I'll say, in a way. And I'm not saying every teacher. I had some really, really beautiful, delightful ones who did teach from their soul, and they were extraordinary, and they knew how to pull out the absolute best in you. And they never had to tell you were fat, ugly, stupid, whatever it was,
Yeah.
So, I had a sprinkling of them, and I was always better for it. So you can't help but see how it can creep in. Like when you're teaching, you're like, oh my God, I'm teaching and I'm talking like this person. Okay, let me stop,
Yeah.
But it did really become a real strong, like, number one desire of, I'm going to change this. Like, maybe who am I to? Yeah, maybe who am I to? But I'm going to change this because I see it, I'm holding it, and I think there's a different way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's so interesting that you had this experience of going into a class as a teenager and seeing how the teacher was speaking to those younger students. I had not the same, but somewhat of a similar experience at the conservatoire, where my other classmates were teenagers, but I was 26. And it was a similar thing where I was like, like, there's not quite, I don't think she would say those things if this was a room full of adults, but there's something going on. And not because not because it's like, oh, maybe a different way to teach for that, like, cognitive ability or whatever. More of just like, there are things that are just not quite like respectful for another human being, but she can get away with it because they're not adults yet, that kind of thing. And that, I think there is something about going through that process in a different, or like in an older body with a wiser mind in some ways, I guess, to be able to analyze it while you're participating in it. Because usually when you're a student, you're just trying to soak everything in. You're just trying to like, okay, let me do this, let me get this right, let me please the teacher. I think just a lot of us as people who were drawn to dance, or because of the way that dance is taught, or I'm not exactly sure of the reasons why, but certainly I know I craved external validation. Something I'm still working on in myself now.
It's a human nature. Yeah.
Yes, right. So, but there was something about having that interesting perspective of, while I'm learning this, I'm also seeing what's going on at the same time, and like how the dynamics of this classroom are, and how much of that I want to take on, and then realizing I have a choice to not take it all on either, to actually, suddenly see like, oh, I can be in this body having this experience and choose how much of what my teacher, who was a very strong personality, how much of that I want to let in. That was like the first time that I kind of really had that realization, because up until then in my life, I honestly was trying to, and it's so funny because I don't consider myself a people pleaser in personality trait, but I was trying to please people all the time in terms of like validation. But I'm certainly someone that I don't mind confrontation. Like I will tell people how it is. I've got that. So I'm not a people pleaser in that kind of way, but I realized that I totally was. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, I had this consideration, oh, maybe it could be different. And then after that was when I, really kind of changed how I taught. And it wasn't a massive change, but I realized there was things that I still needed to heal in myself. Because I just remember thinking like, I wish that this teacher could come in a good mood, just like be in a good mood, and that the class would be different. Because sometimes it was different and sometimes it wasn't. And it doesn't mean like she had to be happy as such, but just content in herself. Because you can tell sometimes where these things are stemming from it in a discontent type of way. And if there's discontent there with yourself, the easiest place to put it is on your students, because they're always going to be making mistakes. I mean, they're learning, for God's sake. Like there are going to be mistakes. So you can just totally filter that discontent through your teaching and kind of get it out there and enjoy that anger or whatever it is. Like you said, the anger.
Yeah, such a good point. So interesting. And I it's funny. It's like I can see, like, even now sometimes, there's definitely people who like it's a power thing for them, where like they can feel when they don't have power over you, and it actually bothers them.
Yeah.
But that's, for me, that's the wrong approach. Like that's not what we're here doing. It's not a power over thing. Of course there's respect. But respect goes both ways,
Yeah.
And I think it's our job and it's our service to get people to respect their own bodies, right? And to bring an environment in where that comes first. Is the honing of understanding the sacredness of what we're working with. And I'm always going to put that above anything. So if I'm in another person's class, and I tell my students in my class, I'm like, you are your own healer. You are your own authority. I'm guiding and I'm inspiring here. And I'm not going to let you injure yourself. I'm going to support you. But, it's your job also to really be a good listener of what you're feeling and to honor that first, because I can't see the internal, aspects of all of you at once. I can see a lot of it. But I'm not, I don't have that capability yet. Maybe I will also know. But anyway, so I think that's so important too. And that's, I think, a big piece of what I got from also studying yoga early on. Like I started taking my first yoga class around the same time. I was like 15, 16, taking yoga. And then I started to realize like, oh, I can listen to my body in yoga, but not in dance.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, just don't know how to.
Weird.
Yeah, I don't know how to really, and then I was doing the body work and the massage, and I was doing all of these things where I was helping people physically like come into a healthier alignment. And it's like, go to dance class and, again, just dishonor what you feel. Sorry, you're injured. Goodbye,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, I think, because I did start all those things early on, because I did start a healing journey all pretty much very early on, that it gave me a different filter to look at these things. And
yeah. Oh, the self-awareness at such a young age, what a beautiful thing to have had on your side. Because I mean, I came to it in my mid to later 20s, so it's so lovely that people.
It was painful. I'm not gonna lie.
Sure.
People say it was a hard thing because I couldn't share it, and I didn't really know what to do with it. I was just bearing witness to it at the time, and trying to move and navigate through it, But I had no idea what to do with it at that point. It was like, that they call sometimes, painfully aware. It was something like that.
Yeah. And there's nearly, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I feel like, at least for me, there's always been that part before there's been the healing. There's always been painful awareness, or the
Absolutely.
messiness, and then things become a little
True.
more clear, and then it's slightly easy to work through, or you're just getting more used to the discomfort, and then on the other side of that becomes comfort again, and then there's something else to uncover. I want to just
Always.
wrap up this little part about teaching, because then I'd love to get into talking about dance as a whole. So I was just thinking then, you know, as you described how you would empower your students in your class and all of these things, what I would like to leave people who are listening to this with is not a binary good teacher in terms of empowering their students and helping them listen to their bodies and explore through dance, and also technique and all of these things, etc. And then over here are the bad teachers who are use fear-based methods and don't care about their students getting injured and their students don't learn properly. That's unfortunately not the binary. All of these things get mixed together. So for example, the teacher that I was just talking about at the conservatoire was famous as being one of the best teachers at that conservatoire. Why? Not because she was necessarily, this kind of person that was interested in healing and empowering her students, but because she was like this with technique and she got it done, not through the best methods, but she got it done. Because if your only outcome that you're looking at is danceability, if that's the only thing, not about how those students are as whole human beings when they leave, not if any of the, if your only metric is dance level, then you can have both healed and non-healed teachers doing that. And I shouldn't even make that as a binary, because no one's ever healed, right? There's always more things. But this more like holistic perspective of looking after people as whole human beings. So I think this is one of the things that I'm really passionate about, talking about dance in a more holistic way, and talking to dance teachers in a more holistic way about the fact that, is that really all we're here for? Because pretty much every dance teacher that I've ever worked with as a coach or a mentor, they totally care about their students. They really, really do. Like, they really do. And so then we have to ask the question, okay, shall we shift then the metrics by which we're measuring how well we're doing as dance teachers, and not only have it as like, are they coming out being able to do triple pirouette at some point, but are they coming out confident, knowing how to listen to their body, knowing how to say no to authority when they're asking for too much and it's whatever, but just kind of shifting the metrics a bit so that we're including more things potentially. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's so important what you're sharing, because it is not like an absolute black and white category. It's not like this is wrong and bad and this is good and righteous. It's, I don't live my life in any regard like that. I don't consider myself, above anything. I have, my own challenges, and I'm always learning, so I think everybody's on their own journey with where they are and with where they're teaching and how that's going in their own experience. We can only speak from our own experience, truly. And it's definitely not a black and white issue. And it kind of comes down to something that I write about a lot, which is which kind of leads a little bit into the anthropology in a sense, which is like, when in history, we decided that dance was going to function as entertainment based, as its top priority, right? This is where I believe the majority of things started in terms of what you and I are talking about right now, because it is a different value than from where it originated. So when you bring it to the entertainment based, the virtuosity can never be high enough. The perfection can never be high enough, because that's the value of it, is applause, is, being looked at as the greatest, of such things. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with people aspiring to hone their physical bodies in such a way that they're capable of anything. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think that that's an amazing thing that we all have potential for. It's just that when it went to such an extreme on that level, that's we sort of the origin of what I'm going to call the soulfulness of it began to drip away and drip away and drip away and drip away until we were only really left with that. So that's the main thing that I see, is that as there was one value that rose in it completely, that the other got lost. And what I'm for and what I'm standing for, because I can't stand for everything. I'm standing for the resurrection of the soul in dance, really, if I'm going to be articulate about it. So, and that's my calling. I'm not saying that's everyone's calling. I'm not saying that that's what you should be doing, but that is what I feel most connected to and most strongly. And, it was very much also informed by studying different dance forms and anthropology and seeing like, well, what is this actually really about for people
Yeah.
when they dance? Why do people dance? Because
Yeah.
it's really not just about getting on a show called So You Think You Can Dance. Much more than that. Although I love that show too. It's great. It's like we
super
love it
fun.
all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all, sometimes it's really about remembering and connecting to the why and what's possible in your own being when you are connected to the actual power of it. Because
Yeah.
I think people do it a lot also unconsciously. They are connected to the power of it, but it's just unconscious. And they don't really know how to hone it so much. They know how to be perfect at it. They know how to be virtuosic. But that deeper inner layer, some people have it, kind of going on organically, and not so much for others. So it just seems, what I used to always talk to my students about when I was a professor was what you're connecting to in movement when you're performing is more important than anything else. I say you can be the most high level technical dancer and you're not going to be selected at an audition, believe it or not. You will be selected by what you're connected to. So if I can like one thing, it's that, right? It's kind of understanding those deeper layers of why, of what, of how it's coming through, and having that inform the intricacies and the details. Because that, I believe, is what makes dance different from gymnastics.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah. I
So
love
what are
this.
your thoughts?
I love this whole concept, and I know that we both share this love of going back to dance as participation rather than as performance. And exactly like you, it's amazing to celebrate both things. I think in the moment that people want to like start pitting dance people in the dance world against each other, we've already lost. So I love that you're saying here, like, hey, dance as entertainment has like brought about wonderful things, TV shows, stage performances, whatever else. And at the same time, how can we have that and offer more opportunities for people to remember what it is about the participation of dance is also important, and not just the applause that comes at the end, but the being in it, the doing of it, the participation with other people, or with that connection with the musicians, or whatever it is. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. So what I'd love to know, Alison, is for you, this soul part, the soul part of dance, are there dance traditions or things either that you've experienced yourself or things that you know about, have read about, have seen even, where we can have different iterations of what dance and soul connection there might be, if that makes sense? So I don't know if it's like transcendent dance, or I don't know, anything. You're the expert here, so I'm excited to hear. I'm
So
excited to hear
there's so
examples.
there's so many facets to it. And I will share that, like, one of the forms that I've fallen in love with in the last 5 years is actually your home base, flamenco.
Oh
The
man,
flamenco
so
dance
powerful.
for me is so soulful.
Oh yeah.
In all of the ways. And I mean, like, and then it's got also, Franco made it the national dance of Spain, and also entertainment based. And, it's got that too to it. But when you see what it grew out of, which was like Spanish Inquisition times and the grief and the rage that people were trying to work through in their bodies. And not only that, they were outcasted, right? They were like the people who didn't belong. They were the gypsies, right? So it is like, it's something that I was even bringing into my modern dance class, because I was teaching a choreography with a little bit of a flamenco sort of like flair to it. And, I was having them really go into what that energy is about, because for me, flamenco in that context is about overcoming hardship and you're giving yourself a place to express the hard emotions, the grief, the rage, the uncertainty, and to allow like there's not like classic Spanish dance is different, but like in like the raw flamenco, it's a lot of like gritty faces,
Oh yeah.
And it's power, and I feel like it's such an incredible freedom to be encouraged to go into those, what I'm going to say for the most of society is unwelcomed emotion. We're taught that being sad or being angry, a lot of these things can be looked upon as negative emotions. So I love that flamenco in a sense sort of encourages the expression and the integration of all of those things. And they call it like the spirit, el duende, this thing that kind of comes in, and then that's really like the thing that you're connected to that nobody really can quite understand. So it's got the spiritual component, it's got that earthing component, it's got that beautiful relationship between the musicians and the dancers, where it is that interchange of that unspoken connection that is just woven, and then it's gone, and then it's done, it's complete.
Yeah.
So I have such a high level respect for that art form. And I'm going to say, even though I've studied so many different dance forms, I find that probably one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging.
Me too.
Rhythmically.
Yep, 100%. Me too.
The feet, the hands, and it's like, it's really, it's a lot. It's
It really
the
is.
footwork I find incredibly challenging, the 12 count rhythm, and it's so
It's
what do you
beautifully
think? What's your
humbling.
experience? Yeah.
Very humbling to try flamenco. I really, it's so I arrived in Spain. When did I move to Madrid? I'd visited Spain, but when did I move? Was I 24 or 25? Around there, 24 maybe. And I'd done lots of different dance styles, especially from Latin America, and obviously like ballet and contemporary and the stuff like that's normal in the UK or typical. And I went into this first class thinking, yeah, this will be cool. Like, I love flamenco music. I love listening to it. I love seeing the thing. And I thought as well, because I dance like samba, for example, Brazilian samba, not Ballroom and Latin samba, this kind of like passion, and I'd learn how to like let that go and let that out in certain moments. I was like, oh, this is going to like bring all these things together. It's going to be really fun. And then it was like the first exercise, how to count it in this 12, and that it keeps changing at that. I was just like, what? And then I realized, like, yeah, this is also partly like, when people say that they have a dance in their blood, I'm like, part of that is the constant exposure as you are creating more blood in your body, I think. And I realized, like, oh, I didn't grow up listening to flamenco music, so there was this thing that and I play the cello, and I was a very good musician at school.
Did we talk about that?
No, we didn't. I didn't even know that.
What's that right there?
It's oh, beautiful cello. I love that light wood. Oh, that's so funny. I had no idea. Yeah, so
that's hysterical.
Yeah, so there's me as well thinking, like, I'm pretty good at music, like, it's all gonna be fine. But no, so challenging. And then bringing those different elements together. And in the end, I was like, you know what? Flamenco is going to be one of those dances that I don't master, and I just enjoy for the beauty of other people doing it. So that's where I got to with flamenco. But it's really like one of my favorite performance memories as an audience member, when I went to, because I've seen a few flamenco shows, but when I went and saw one in Sevilla, which is obviously one of the original places of flamenco, and it was a tablao, so you're kind of like close to them, you're on the floor, they're like right there. And I just remember, amazing. Like, there was a lady and a guy and a guitarist and not a drummer, but like, what do they call that thing? Well, the wooden box thing.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. And there was the faces like so close, and then the guy doing his spins and they were sweating and the sweat like came and flicked onto us, and it was just a very raw human experience. And like I can see how, you know, when I think back to, you know, like I don't know, going and watching classical music concerts, for example, as a little girl, and you know, you're supposed to sit still in your chair and you're supposed to clap at the right moments, and you're supposed to just like let it all wash over you. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But it was just, this was just so very different, and it was so very human. And I felt, you know, like I lived that with the dancers. And so yeah, like I totally see flamenco being full of soul. I never thought of it in that way, but as soon as you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I see that. Amazing.
Yeah, for sure. It's I mean, I kind of fell into it in a way. I was dating a guy at the time who was he played in a flamenco band, and
Mm.
so it was just sort of something that he, you know, we creatively wanted to do something together. So he's like, why don't you take flamenco lessons so we could kind of like, you know, jam out together and do our thing. And so that's what we ended up doing. And then he created some music, and it was very flamenco influenced. And I kind of had to learn how to, and you know, of course, like the torso part, you know, it was much easier to embody. So it was easy
Mm.
to bring into like a contemporary piece. But
Yes,
so it was sort of accidental. But I have an amazing teacher
love
who's
that.
here. Yeah, but anyway, so that's definitely one of my favorite in terms of soulfulness. I think I'm not going to be I can't even exclude them, because I want to say every indigenous form I've come across has
Yeah.
that to it, you know. I lived in Hawaii for a long time, and of course, you know, there's hula in Hawaii, which of course also had its um it was made as the lure to come to Hawaii. You know, it was, you know, at some point also part of tourism. Like, you know, so there's this woman with the coconut shells and the grass skirt, you know, and then, you know, but the origin of the connection to the land, and the origin of the storytelling through movement, and the origin of the connection to each other through movement, you know, we like to see it, and it's we like to behold it, but it's, I think that a lot of the time, unless you're doing it, you're not understanding like the deeper layer of how this was, like how history was passed down, was
Yeah.
through dances and the storytelling, and through the gestural movements, all had very much like in the classical Indian, the Kathak, where
Hmm.
there's, you know, all of the hand gestures that have their own meaning. You know, hula also has the gestural pieces to it that, if you are familiar, you're understanding that it's a story woven through movement, and it's always in reverence of the land, and it's always in reverence of the ancestors, you know.
Yeah.
When I used to teach about the haka, I loved it so much because the students would light up because they never really saw men. um so the haka of New Zealand, right? I'm sure you're familiar, right? So it's become popular in the way that they do it in, you know, in the beginning of sporting events,
Yeah.
because it's a bit of a warrior dance. But I
Yeah.
would love to see, I always loved seeing the men in I used to, you know, my world dance class, like light up when they saw these men take on this like warrior essence, and to call it a dance and to be in their full power. It was just something that we don't have here, that a lot of places don't have. And there was something about that that I saw, you know, when I asked people, you know, in this the student body, like, what was your favorite class, you know, form that we learned about all semester? And the majority of them would say the haka, because they had never seen anything like it. They had never seen men take on that energy. They had never seen the unification of men in dance before. I mean, I know women do haka as well, so I don't want to exclude that, but the energy of that is so potent, and the and what it's used for in terms of inclusivity, the fact that they have ones that they use for weddings, that they have ones that they use to honor funerals, that they have ones that are still just about that playful, are we friendly or are we foe, you know. And it's actually still also one of my favorite forms. So I loved bringing that out, because it would like blow my students' mind, like, what was that? What even just happened? And that's something in me, you know, like it was almost like something that they could see and feel, that they were allowed to then touch in themselves. because that was the fun part, was that to go in the studio and embody it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
and
it.
I do. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I love the Haga is such a powerful example. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, probably, and it's anyone who's watched rugby's probably seen it. But I'll put a link in the description in case you want to go and look at it. Alison will probably send me a good one, because otherwise I'll just be like probably showing like New Zealand men's rugby team or something. But it's exactly what you just described, Alison. This power, this moment to harness. Because originally, was it a war, like a pre-war ritual?
Yeah,
Is that
so it
like
was,
its origin?
it wasn't timid. It was a dance that again originated from a story, and it became a real bonding for the warrior men who were trained in this. And it became, when new people were coming to the land, it was their way of testing them. It was showing, it was an intimidation, it was them showing their power and testing the boundary of, you sure you want to come here? You sure you want this? And it's much deeper than that, and I can go on, but I won't. But there's so many layers to it. And the thing that speaks to me the most in this regard, that I regret seeing in how we look at dance most of the time, is that there's this lineage of sacredness about it that's passed on, that there's nothing really lost there, that even though times are different, that it's something still that they teach their children, and that they fully embody, and really get to have that as something that unifies. Because I think one thing that we miss a lot, especially I'm in the States here, I'm outside New York, is the power of dance to unify. And one of the things I shared with you, maybe in a different conversation, was what I realized that was so captivating to me about the power of dance, was that throughout history, every form that I researched before I brought to my class, maybe there's one I missed, but I saw that at some point in history, and I've already said this in different ways, but at some point in history, government, religion, sometimes both, came in and said, you're not doing this anymore. We're banning it. You're outlawed. It's done. It happened with every form. And the way that they brought it back was they turned it into entertainment. You can do this now, but under the guise of entertainment.
Yeah.
So that was, and that kind of brings our conversation full circle in a lot of regards, was, again, every form I saw that was built from the earth, from the heart, from the body, from the stories of the ancestors, was looked as a threat from the authority, whoever the authority was. That was a threat. People being in their body, in their power, was a threat. Being in unity with each other was a threat. Even I talk about the ghost dance, like the Native American ghost dance, and the Battle of Wounded Knee, and how that happened. It was a threat. They saw men dancing, and they thought that they were going to revolt. They're unified. They're together. They're dancing around this fire. They're all in these same shirts. They're in unity. We must stop them. Even though they had already taken everything. They'd already taken their buffalo, everything. They had taken everything. They were starving. And the dance was like one of the last things they took. So to me, it's such a statement of why we dance and what it is that we're connected to when we dance. And to know that it's our birthright to be in our bodies and be in our full power through our unique expression of how we choose to connect to ourselves and to each other through that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, just this exact point of the prohibition of dance in different moments across history in different places is so counter to the stories that we sometimes tell in our cultures about dance, which is that it's this thing that little girls do in tutus. And that's not to take away from the power of ballet. Ballet is an extremely
I love ballet. I still take ballet.
Sure. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I just find it so ironic that it's almost like we're being like gaslit from within dance, this thing of like we're trying to like completely take away its power, even in the way that we talk about it, even between ourselves, even the people who see and feel dance's power. We still have this thing of like, oh yeah, but you know what I do, I'm a dancer, so yeah, I'm really lucky and it's this thing. And it's like, no, what you do is one of the most powerful human behaviors ever to have existed. And I put that in with music as well. I think we talked about my definition of dance is intentional rhythmic movement. So dance and music come from the same fundamental behavior that all human beings have. And that when we really stop and think about that fact, that dance has deliberately been banned by authorities, that can give us some like pointers
all over the world.
Yeah, it's, I mean,
with no connection. It was just like, and I couldn't believe it. It was like I was teaching all the time. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it blew my mind. I was like, and I'd be teaching the kids. I'm like, well, here comes the Christians. Here comes
you know what's coming next. Yeah.
Here comes the government once again. And they would be laughing because it was just this ongoing theme. And like, we both couldn't get over how, anyway, the pattern was just so clear. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's amazing because one thing that I've always wondered about, because you know a lot of my research is in the evolution of music and dance, one thing I've always wondered about, and we'll never know because dance doesn't leave any traces, doesn't leave fossils, like you can't tell which bodies of dance and which ones haven't. We assume that most prehistoric human cultures had dance, but what I also wonder is like, did those also spontaneously have these elements of storytelling and ritual and connecting to the divine and all these things that we do tend to see cross-culturally? To me, it doesn't really matter if it came from like, our original ancestors in East Africa and they came with their dances and they slowly evolved, or whether there was this like just almost like the prohibition that it happened here and it happened here and it happened here, and they weren't coordinating, but it was something so potent. And I feel like dance as well was something so potent in this storytelling, in this bonding of the tribe, in this ability for us to embody different parts of ourselves, or call on like our strength when we need it, or call on embodying the grief when we needed that, or whatever it was. It was just so powerful that there was no way that no human culture weren't going to have dance and music practices, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I almost think so much of us taking back our power right now can be through that if we choose to. I feel like we're wired to have this desire for a reason. Like you and I are really wired to have this, what we're holding about this for a reason. So that's my question right now, is during the times that we're in, that we see how intense it's been and how authoritarian things have become globally, different conversation, but highly applicable. How do we choose to be in our bodies fully? How do we choose to connect to our hearts and to each other, no matter what? And to choose that over outside authority, because truly the only authority is you and Creator, in my opinion, right? So these indigenous cultures knew that. So, I'm all for that. And, my work is embodied dance, but it's really about getting people in their bodies, getting them to trust themselves, to trust what they feel, trust what they know, and connect, and to source to their own wisdom.
Yeah, because we're so aligned on that. I love that so much. For you personally, where's the movement at the moment where you're feeling best able to embody the things that you're looking for right now in your life? I don't know if that question makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think that the massive way that I'm being called to do it is through the teacher training that I'm offering. So I do it's a 10-month teacher training, and I feel like I'm just putting people out in the field, and it's global. People are from everywhere, which is amazing. It brings in that nourishment for me of being able to connect with people in any space. But for me, I'm interested in people coming into their leadership who feel called and feel like it's time. I'm not saying that I'm going to stay here infinitely. I'm with the call of my own spirit. So right now I'm being called to support people into their leadership, to have them really bring forward their gifts, and to use these methods of how we're anchoring in, and to have them really different in different places of the world, anchoring this in and standing for that for the people that they're working with. So that's how I'm doing it currently, is I'm building leaders.
I love it.
And I might get called to do something different in a year or two, but this is the thing that's flowing through me the strongest right now. I also want to write more. I want to write a book. I have a lot of things I want to do, and I'm sure you as well. But right now, the teacher training has been the main focus of my why, of my how, and I'm open to seeing how it goes. And
Have you already started? Are you in the middle of that? Is it
oh yeah,
open for
so
enrollment? Yeah, like in case
yeah,
people are like,
so
oh, I want to train with Alison.
yeah, so it's an open enrollment form, but it's also very high touch, meaning that the content is something you can move through at your own pace on a platform. But we also meet 3 times a month for support calls. I lead calls on very specific, deeper topics. And then I give them an opportunity to bring their magic in and practice teach while we're in, because that's what it's all about, is the support of your soul work. So yeah, right now I've got people in Germany, East Africa, a couple different people in the States. I've just graduated people in Sweden and Hungary and Australia, and so there's quite a lot of diversity in terms of where people are coming from, which I love.
Yeah, so
But
fun.
yeah, it's an open enrollment. People can pop in at any time, and it's for those people who truly want to be supported, to be seen and held for who they are and the gifts that they bring in a unique way. I say it's kind of in 3 parts. It's personal growth, like it's definitely taking you through your own energy, your own limiting beliefs. You go through all of the material yourself, you embody it fully. And then it's bringing the teaching tools. These are the methods, these are the how-tos, this is how you can do it. And then the third piece is, how do you want to do it your way? You know, by giving them all of the tools for niching and marketing and branding, and saying, how do you actually want to show up in the world with these tools? Because you don't have to do it. I'm actually going to encourage you to not do it like I'm doing it. I want you to
Yeah,
do it from your expertise and
yeah,
your drive, you know?
yeah.
So, yeah, so that's what it is.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We will have the link to the application in the description if you guys want to check it out. Is there anything else that you'd like us to link to, Alison?
Um, I mean, I can just link you to my website if you want to learn
Perfect.
more as well, and social media accounts and things of that nature. I'm there all the time. It's kind of how we
Yeah,
connect.
exactly.
So yeah, I'd be really happy to connect with anybody who has questions, or they want to learn more, or they just they feel a call to step into something bigger. And I will say, lastly, we're typically not the people who thought that we would be leaders. It's usually I'm working with the people who are highly sensitive, what I should call quiet rebels. Like, you see something, like you and I are talking about, you see something that's not quite right. You might not be extroverted about it, but when you have a drive to do something different. So, getting out of our own way is really the thing that I help people the most, the self-sabotage and the who am I to. So, yeah, it's never too late. You're never too old. So don't believe what they tell you.
Absolutely. Hashtag never too late. I used to use that
Never
one for
too late.
years and years and years. I love it. Alison, thank you so much. I feel like this probably won't be the last conversation that we have on my YouTube channel, because there's so much to talk about. Guys, if you would like Alison and I to do potentially another video going into more of the different dance styles, because Alison has this breadth of knowledge of dance styles from all over the world, let us know in the comments. Also let us know what was your favorite part of this. And hopefully I'll be able to have the opportunity to speak to Alison again, because as you can see, we're very aligned on our mission, but she has just this huge wealth of knowledge that I want to learn from too. So it's very exciting. Alison, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with my lovely community.
Thank you so very much. I so enjoyed this. It was so great. And I love all of your, energy and feedback and experience. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.